Hey everybody, how you doing? So it's Friday and we're pretty much, I would say, almost probably past the halfway point of this semester, abbreviated as it is. So we got a couple of things on deck. I am posting this today. I'll be posting this on Friday. I'm taping this Thursday, but anyway, um, and we have two things to do. Pick two big ones. Student reaction to the housing situation on or off campus. And also the Megalomania Summit, which I decided to sign earlier than I intended. I was going to sign it on Friday, but I ended up by signing it on Monday. So from now, you have a week left to do it. One thing I was hoping to see was more people actually, I'll be honest, um, basically asking questions, finding out what they think might that lead is. I realize there's another summit that's due, but I just want to give people like lots of lead time on that one. So, you know, you really should be asking like Billboard and questions as soon as possible about what that story is really about. Okay. Um, let's like talk about that first because I'm sure there's probably still some remaining questions about that. There always is. That's fine. So let's just share the screen. And after that, I'll talk about the housing situation reaction assignment. Okay. Um, all right. So this is what we have to do. Now, this is actually the the teacher's perspective. So let me go to the students. And like I said, it's really best to go to show by type. Okay. Now I did post a new assignment and I'll be getting to this. This is actually from week. So over the weekend, I'll be grading the housing reaction stories. Okay. And then the rewrite for that will be due a week from today, week from Friday. Okay. Be due June 20th. All right. All right, so there's actually a new post for that. I've seen people again posting on the wrong place. Please, some people have tell you you're not paying attention to these videos. You got to catch up. Okay, I mean, I'm doing the best I can. I understand people have situations that are going through, but let's try to like, I've also seen just stories just kind of appear without me, late, like, too late for the deadline. After the deadline, I'm not going to be grading those unless you could reach out to me and let me know like what's going on. Otherwise it's an F. So I'm sorry to do that, but I mean, as you probably know, in the news business, deadlines are very, very important. Getting things on time and trying to be as first is important. Of course, being right is the most important thing. But let's see what we got to do. So again, we have due Friday, we have this. This is the third assignment. Sorry, this one right here, the third assignment, students' reaction to housing on or off campus. That basically deals with either one or both. Okay. We talk about that in a minute. Then, of course, there's the rewrite I'll be doing a week, and now this assignment, which is the Megalomania press release assignment. Okay. So again, we're moving to the reporting phase, as well as the public relations phase of this course. I'll be talking more about that element of it on in Monday's lecture, and how that relates also to really this housing situation reaction story, and how basically how do we get news nowadays? It's basically often not so much handed to us as it is essentially manipulated for us. um, it's provided in a press release more often than not, and that's actually probably the number one way it's delivered. So what you have to do is actually you have to dig a little bit and try to find out what really maybe the true meaning is, because when you're getting it from one particular source, that's something along the lines of like maybe a government official or a company, a major Fortune 500 company or whatever, it's going to be delivered in a way that's going to be like suit their message. Okay. So what you have to do as reporters is you have to be the voice of the people, as they say. You have to basically um right? So the way that they all can understand again. Remember, I said that before. And the way they need to understand is what really matters to them. It's not just the simplistic form of writing, but the subject matter has to matter to them too. And that's why this reporting into the course is important, because you not only have to basically explain things in a simplistic way, but you have to basically meet people at their level, talk to them about what they care about. Money is a big thing. I had I had I'm sorry, office hour sessions with one of you, and we talked about, what are some of maybe the most important things that people care about? Well, money, right? And attached to that is a lot of things like numbers, stuff like that, statistics, things like that. And by the way, also don't forget, I also forgot to say that the rewrite for the second assignment is also due. So don't forget that. That's the worksheets assignment. That's due on Friday as well. So anyway, so and that's why in those leads I was looking for really like numbers that matter, because numbers often have like some sort of an impact on people. Okay. Um, and not, in this particular story, they matter too. And maybe they don't matter a direct way, like a lot of people complain about the way they feel like they're being pickpocketed by the government through taxes and fees and that sort of thing. But in a way that like you see people like maybe, and I'm giving away big hints here, spending money in ways they shouldn't be. Okay. This story actually, this press release that you were given was essentially born out of the Great Recession of the late 2000s. I've been doing it a number of times since then in my classes. Bill Borden really came up with it. And don't forget, you have to reach out to him, as I said before. He's playing the role of company spokesman, so you need to reach out to him. But anyway, um, so what was happening at the time was that when there were companies that were failing and the economy was failing, that sort of thing, people were looking for people to blame. Okay. And so, when a company, I'm getting again giving away big hints here. When a company comes at you and says things like, "We're like remodeling our company" and that sort of thing, well, okay, that's great. And a lot of companies do that, and they do that for the right reasons, and they do that to make their business better. But a lot of times they don't. A lot of times there's more nefarious reasons for why they're doing it. A lot of times it's maybe to kind of, dare I say, I don't want to use the word cover up because it's not necessarily a cover up story, but they do things that kind of shade or color things in a way so that it makes them come out looking good and not bad. Because what news is maybe behind the shakeup in the company may be bad news. Okay. All right. So again, to go over this assignment, you have to act quickly and right away. So I mean, we'll be handing in this housing situation reactions assignment and the worksheets rewrite. So you have that out of the way. Okay. But then you have to really kind of concentrate on this one. Now I said you need to watch the video. I mean, I included the video that's here as part of my Monday video. All right, so you don't really have to watch it again if you if you've seen the Monday video, okay? But it is something to watch because we do talk about the press release, we talk about what goes into it, that sort of thing. If you feel like you need to watch it again, either watch the lecture video or this one itself. All right, and then try to determine the focus of the assignment. Okay, and then really email me and for help for confirmation. I would say that's not required, but I would say that it's strongly urged. And like I said, well, only one of you has done that. That's fine. Let's try to like get on that, and so we can have, you know, so I can help you. Okay. And that's why I'm here because basically reporting and writing, I mean, it's all about working as a team. I mean, um, anybody who writes a book or of any type or something like that, you don't really write it in what they call a vacuum. You don't write it without help. You have an editor who helps you. You work as a team. Okay. I actually did publish a book one time. Maybe you read my resume. I don't know. But anyway, and I published it 14 years ago. And I actually had not only did I have like an editor at the publisher who they edited things and so that they would sound better. But I had like my own private editor that helped me too. Um, I still feel like my voice and my language was still there, but it was tweaked a bit so that it would be shaped up and more readable and that sort of thing. So you work as a team when you're actually trying to write something good. Okay. So you're rewriting this press release and turn it into a story. This press release is a focus that prioritizes the company's point of view, but you're writing for the general public. Okay. And you need to determine what the focus should be and what matters to people at large. Okay. Some of which I went over in the last video. Again, Bill is going to be playing the role of company spokesman. And please, if you quote him, please use his name, just say company spokesman or whatever he's been calling himself. Again, I mean, this is the newest lecture video, which includes the video I did with Bill. Okay. Um, and um, and then again, as I talk in the video, the first paragraph is in the lead. You have to find the lead that's important for your audience, the general public, goes beyond the company's spin, and then build the story from there. This is what reporters do. They go beyond what's handed to them on a silver platter and report and prioritize the information that matters to their readership. Once you find that lead theme, you need to email Bill Borden, who will play the role of company spokesman, as I said. And this is his email. Let me know. I've had probably 99.7 or 8% good fortune with that. We've been doing this a lot for over the last 20 years or so. And there's been a couple of times where Bill has missed it. That's fine, but just let me know. I actually even have the information myself if it comes down to that. Okay, so but I don't want to hear it. Really, I gotta say, I really don't want to hear at the last minute on Thursday. I never heard from Bill. Well, come on. All right. If you don't tell me that until Thursday, something's up. Okay. Meaning Thursday next week. All right. That means that basically, I mean, you should be worried by now if you haven't heard from him. Okay. Or even maybe Monday or Tuesday, but not Thursday. Okay. Maybe you haven't had the time to really kind of concentrate on it and that sort of thing, but you really should be like emailing him today, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whatever. Okay. Then, maybe by like Tuesday, if you haven't heard from him, then maybe I would understand. But after that, then it's, I think it's more on you. Okay. Then you probably just haven't emailed him yet. So let's get on this. Okay. And do this. Okay. So what he's going to do is he's going to send you a document that provides some of the depth you'll need. And what it's going to do is that information is going to come in the form of an Excel spreadsheet and also a questionnaire. So he's not going to give you like answers like this is what I have to say. You're going to actually have to look at this, and this Excel spreadsheet is actually going to have the information you're going to need. And and I'm giving away all huge hints here. Once you look at the details of that Excel spreadsheet, you should know what this focus of the story should be. Okay. I mean, it's really unusual stuff that happened. Okay. Stuff that's not expected of certain people. And when you read that, I mean, you should even look for anything that's like illegal or whatever. Okay. Um, and yeah, so that's basically should definitely change your focus of your story. I should not see the lead paragraph in the press release in your story as the lead paragraph of your story. First of all, I shouldn't even see it like in the first half of the story. I have the press release right here. This one right here. Nobody cares about this. Everybody hear me? Nobody cares about this. The world's leading provider of entertainment is forming an office of chief executive. Nobody cares. If you're walking into a Megalomania store and you learn about this, that they're forming, you don't say to yourself, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll buy their entertainment equipment or whatever. Or you don't say like, well, that's terrible what's happening. Nobody says that. Okay. Um, so yeah. So basically if they had a restructuring of Disney, you wouldn't walk into a Disney store. You wouldn't go to a Disney theme park and say like, there's been a restructuring of the Disney theme park, the Disney company. I don't know if I'm going to go down the Matterhorn, you know? So anyway, so you have to like, I've always suggest to people, and by the way, I made the date for this resignation I gave something away there for this restructuring, and that on June 20th. So you could almost pretend like it's happening the day it's due. Okay. And basically, you could just basically say this happened today or yesterday or whatever. Okay. When you write it or something like that. So, or whatever you want to say. But I made it June 20th because that is actually the due date. Oh, look at this. I made a mistake. I put June 20th. That's unfortunate. That should say June. That should say June 20th, 2025. Oh, brother, that's pretty funny. Okay. Anyway, see if I can change that. That's pretty funny. All right. All right. All right. So what you could do is you could go through this and you see just almost again, I think I've gone over some of this already, but again, prioritize what you think is important. There's a restructuring. And like I said, I could give you that hint right away. This should not be in the first half of the story. The office of the chief executive was formed after, and then this is what it's comprised of. You think to yourself, is that important? The most important thing in the story that needs digging into. Some biography stuff on Mian, Felix Mian, and who he sold his company to. Is that important to the story? Okay. And does that need more digging? Who Mr. Garrett is and what he's done in the past. I mean, this is some of Bill's sense of humor, like I said before. Mr. Youngblood and what he's done. Is that important and needs more digging, more information about? Okay. Our corporate culture will not changes one iota as a result of this restructuring. Does that matter to the people and need more digging into? Okay. We're planning on expanding our intellectual property since it generates a great deal of cash, blah, blah, blah. Does that need more explaining or digging into? The board of directors asked for and received the resignation of Marv Bronson. There I have it correct, 2025. Is that need more digging into? And is it leave things kind of vague? The board concluded the facts reflected poorly on Mr. Bronson's judgment. His resignation is not related to issues of importance of the company, blah, blah, blah. Undermine the credibility of the within the company and to the invested public. Does that matter to people and basically need more digging into? Okay. All right. So anyway, yeah. So that's so what you do is you get that information, and yes, I mean, people say to me like, "Well, how can you turn that into a 500, 800 word story?" Well, that's the thing is that the press release isn't so much the story. What you could do is you could take the stuff that's actually in the press release and use it in the story. I'm not saying that everything that's in that press release is useless. It's actually useful. It's just if you go back to the inverted pyramid we talked about, okay? Remember the upside down triangle? Um, basically the most important stuff is at the top, okay? I'm putting in the correct date in, by the way. The most important stuff is at the top, and the least important stuff is at the bottom. So what you do is you basically, take what is the stuff that matters most to people and put that at the top, okay? And then whatever material you got that digs into it, and there's material that actually makes whatever you determine is going to be the lead, okay? Before you even get the information, you're going to find out information from Bill that's going to make the story even more interesting. I can give you that hint too, okay? All right. So anyway, all right. So we got the correct date in there now. All right. So yeah. So again, that's due in a week. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the assignments. Again, I apologize for not mentioning earlier that there is an assignment entry for the rewrite. So that's due. I see some of you have submitted already for the leads worksheet. Okay. Um, and remember with that, the idea there is to really just, as I mentioned in the Monday lecture, is really to concentrate on most specific, unusual, and newest, biggest thing you could possibly come up with. Okay. One sentence leads, not written as headlines. Okay. So that's due. Okay. Third assignment, that's due. This is due next week. I'm sorry, this is the third assignment. That's due next week. And then the Megalomania, that's due next week. Let me check on the discussion points because I made a big deal about that. The warrant odd that came in initially. Remember that this also counts as class participation. Oh, look, people are doing very well now. Look at that, 15. Wow, excellent. Okay, we're moving, we're cooking, we're doing well here. Okay, good. Um, we have Sasha here. Look, people reacting to each other. That's excellent. Great, terrific. We need that. We're asynchronous. We need to communicate with each other. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Very good work. Okay. Um, all right. Wow, that's good. All right. This is old discussion points. Don't worry about those. Okay. Although we do have there's one there that will matter, but don't worry about it right now. Just this one right here. This is the teacher view. Okay. Maybe I should go back to the student view. Okay. Yes, there we go. Okay. All right. All righty. So, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I should have done this already. I'm sorry. I am going to um I'm going to show you a story that's been submitted already. And Shreya was very nice to actually supply it for us. And I am going to actually include this in the oops, I have to go back again. I apologize. Where am I now? There we go. Leave student view. I'm going to include this in both the third assignment. I'm sorry, this gets a little confusing for me even to explain this, but the third assignment reaction story as an example of a story that works. Okay. And also the rewrite entry. Okay. So that'll be right here. Make sure that I get it in here. All right. Upload documents, upload file. Okay. Submit. Okay. Um, I haven't actually graded her paper yet, but it's going to be an A. Okay, so we got that in there. Okay, and then I'm going to put it in the other one. It's actually good that I probably do this in front of your faces because then you'll know where the heck it is. Again, here's the rewrite entry. So that's where we put the rewrites. Okay. All right. Okay. Full of a housing situation action story that worked. Okay. Now I'm going to go over that story right now as well. Okay. Okay. All right. I mean, they're not, some of these stories I show are not always perfect, but, you know, perfect enough. Okay. Probably we have a little bit of a shorter discussion than usual, but Monday's discussion, I'm going to go into more about digging. I'm going to talk about chapters 17 and 19, which is actually among the last chapters you have to read among. Um, and I'm also going to talk about, I'm actually going to like bring up a certain case that came up. There's been a lot of like shootings and things like that involving the police and things like that, where when they present information to you in a press release and it doesn't always tell you everything you need to know. Okay, and that's why you have to dig and find out, like, okay, what really happened here? Why was this person shot? Okay, um, I just was actually my wife had CNN on, and and also just got a alert says that Israel just attacked Iran. Wow. Okay. So anyway, that's the news lead right there. Israel attacked Iran. Israel defense minister said, raising fears of an all-out war between the two powerful militaries. That's a typical common lead. So what sounds like something that's horrific that's happening. I'm not taking a side there. I'm just telling you, I just don't like war at all. Okay. So no matter who does it. All right. Anyway, and I believe that sometimes it's like it's been necessary. That's okay. So I understand, but when fighting Hitler and that sort of thing. But I'm just reporting the news here. Okay. All right. Anyway, so um, so what we talk about is basically like how when you get a story presented like that, you want to find like, well, why? Like this news alert I just had. I mean, there's reasons, obviously, like why Israel is doing what it's doing, and they're completely justified, and you need to know that, or maybe not. We'll see. Okay. Um, you just can't like take things at face value. I'm gonna be talking, and then when police do things like when they say they're going to protect the public or something like that, well, when they actually like do something like shoot somebody, is that protecting the public? And I was just going to tell you before, my wife had CNN on before, and there was a California senator, United States senator, who was apparently handcuffed and tackled to the ground while he was asking questions loudly at a press conference involving Kristi Noem, the Homeland Defense Secretary. What happened there? Like, you want to find out like more than just like, okay, he got handcuffed and that sort of thing. Maybe he did act inappropriately, or maybe he didn't. Probably didn't. Anyway, so anyway, I don't want that. But anyway, one thing you also want to find out is like when something's happening, you want to find out like, okay, so part of like finding out that depth is also finding out essentially like what like where do people feel? One thing I would like to know when I hear about stories about a U.S. senator being like essentially in effect arrested is did he do anything to provoke something to happen? And one thing I always like to find out is how do people actually feel about this when you see this video of this United States senator being tackled to the ground? I feel like it's interesting. I feel like if that happened like 30 years ago, people would think it's horrific. And I mean, Bill Clinton was president 30 years ago, right? So they probably would like blame Bill Clinton, you know? But I feel like almost like, and I mean, I don't mean to take a side here, but I feel like Donald Trump has almost been like Teflon to this sort of thing, whether you like him or hate him or whatever. Okay. And in fact, people seem to almost be like cheering this kind of behavior on, you know. But like, how do people? That's like one of the things I like to find out when I need depth in the story. How do people really feel about this? You know, and again, this story is not a poll, it's not a survey, but it basically what it does is it provides some sort of a window into how people feel about situations that maybe make you think like, okay, do people feel the same way as I do? Does this bother other people like it bothers me? What we're dealing with here is, of course, something diametrically different than a U.S. United States senator being thrown to the ground, of course, or some sort or a war that's taking place in the Middle East. But it's basically the housing situation. Now, I did have an interesting question. Basically, I mean, this is all encompassing. This is both dealing with on campus or off campus. So you can interview both people on campus or off campus. I'm talking about the housing situation in general here. And remember, the story is not about the housing situation. It's about the reaction to the housing situation. And the on campus and off campus situation, they have some, things that are different about them, but they also have things that are similar about them. Okay. It's one of the things that are very similar to the off-campus and on-campus housing is accessibility, is actually being able to get the actual on-campus housing, which can get difficult, especially after freshman year or something like that. Or getting housing that's good, that's actually like something that works. That's not too far away, that sort of thing. The same thing applies with off-campus housing. And I was talking to one of our very good students, and she was saying that one of the big problems now, of course, is affordability. Being able to find something where you can actually where you don't have to like work like two jobs on top of your schoolwork in order just to live there or something like that. Or, basically empty out your parents' pocketbooks and wallets and that sort of thing. Okay. Um, so they have those kind of overlapping qualities to them. Of course, things that don't overlap necessarily are like things like, off campus, you have to worry about things that driving to the campus, that sort of thing. Parking becomes maybe more of a problem because you're probably driving or something like that. I mean, when I lived off campus, I actually lived within walking distance, so I was actually lucky. But I had to deal with things like parking, which I never dealt with in my life. Growing up at the Jersey Shore in Point Pleasant, we had parking lots for everything. So, of course, if you go there now during the summertime, you can't park there. So, what am I saying? But if you want to get around, you were school age like me, you had a bike, So, um, so what she did was Shreya here did a very good job. And what she did was she got a lead. And again, this is now the example that's in your assignment entries, okay, for both the actual main assignment and the rewrite assignment, okay. And what she got was essentially was a lead that basically identifies what this story is about. You want to get the consensus opinion of how people feel. And her consensus of the group she interviewed and everything is that they were displeased, okay. Now, again, the idea here is to I say idea, I don't want to repeat that word twice, but when you get the main idea of a story, whether it's this story or the megalomania story or something like that, it's important to get like an idea and an angle. So with the megalomania story, basically you find out what that idea is, okay? And then, the main point of the story, but you probably want to get like some sort of general reason that asks these two of all the W's that we've talked about, the who's, the what's, the where's, the why's, probably the most important questions are what and why, okay? Um, so you want to get the what happened and the why it happened in the lead. Maybe some general statement that says that. Same thing here. You don't want to just say that they're displeased. You want to get a little bit about like what are they displeased about and why. Okay. basically some sort of overall. I call it an umbrella topic. Okay. So it says Rutgers students say in a very good active voice here, displeased with the housing situation both on campus or off campus, with many agreeing that the heat has not only made the lack of air conditioning um with many agreeing that the heat has only made the lack of air conditioning. I actually should probably, I think she is missing a word here, and I missed that when I first read it. With many agreeing that the heat has only made the lack of air conditioning con convenience. Um, okay. Um, probably should be something like this: inconveniences and price rent more troublesome. Okay. I will fix that. Okay. Apologize for that. Okay. Let me fix that. Okay. So basically you have what she's doing there. She's essentially um she's basically identifying like some of the general overalls that come with both, the living on campus and off campuses. And then like I said, there's like certain inconveniences that are maybe attached to it. Um, that sort of thing. Okay. Um, big one that we'll hear about right now. I mean, she's interviewing people actually who are actually still living on campus, but also living off campus, which is what I did. I did one summer. I lived on campus, off campus, and worked around here walked around New Brunswick. And yeah, there and we had like no air conditioning essentially, and it was pretty horrible. So yeah, there was that. We had to deal with those sort of things. And then of course the affordability she discussed. Okay. So yeah, so those are like two of the most common ones that come up. Okay. Um, okay. All right. So anyway, just making sure that this gets back in there. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Let's get back to where we were. Okay. All right. So the temperatures, so we basically then we get once we identify our lead and like her, it's interesting. It doesn't have to like stick to like how people feel in the summertime, but her people she did talk to are dealing with the summer. But I mean, it could be dealing with troubles that go on all year. Like it's not just the air conditioning maybe is a problem, but it's also like the heat, the heating systems and things like that can be a problem here. You know, I mean, like so I've heard about people complaining about things being too cold and like having to like go to bed with a coat on and things like that. That sort of thing. Okay. With that, so basically, what once we get that lead in there, it basically talks about the overall. Um, anyway, so anyway, I just wanted to how's he switching over? The lack of air conditioning inconveniences the price for it. Should say made everything more troublesome. Okay. Um. Anyway. With the temperatures rising, students across New Brunswick are experiencing how uncomfortable it can get, especially during the summer and early fall semester. So yeah, so we are going a little bit into the fall semester here, where it can get pretty hot. Okay, and then actually at the end of the spring semester, I noticed that too. Okay, so basically this is our first transition. What that does is it takes like this lead and breaks it down into smaller parts. So you have your lead, okay, you have your transition. And what that does, like I said, that like breaks it's almost like there's blocks. It breaks it into blocks that basically back up the lead. Okay. And that those blocks are usually the transition, the anecdote, which is like a little story within a story, which provides probably like the best reporting you can get because it gets down to the territory of reported material that's like relatable to people where they can kind of say like, yeah, I agree with that. Or maybe they didn't even know that was going on and they like maybe make them think twice about living on campus or something like that. And but here it says, so we have our transition that introduces like an even smaller topic, which is a smaller story, and Anika Malady, rising junior at Rutgers University, lives in Hardenberg Hall on College Avenue. She said the indoor heat has made studying and even sleeping a struggle during the hotter months. That's a good personal story. I mean, it's not the most unusual thing in the world, but it's unique enough. And it actually, what it does is, again, it kind of opens the window a little bit and it gives people a feel for like the experience they're getting. So we're not just telling people, everything's bad. We're showing them. We're showing them how it's bad. Okay. We mentioned overall that the situation isn't very good because of these situations. Well, what's it causing? You can think of it as almost a cause and effect thing. This person is actually struggling to sleep. I pay 6,000 per semester for a room plus extra for purchasing a tower fan that doesn't work very well. That's a good direct quote. And as I've mentioned to you already, and I showed in the last videos, okay, like I showed in last Friday's video. I'm not a big fan of long quotes. I'd much rather you actually like paraphrase things. And if you're going to actually like directly quote something, it should be something colorful or emotional. So you have somebody basically saying something that's colorful and is and emotional. Is somebody that'll be complaining about something. I can't believe this. That's almost like the tone of this. Like 66,000 per semester, and tower fan doesn't even work. What is the hell is this? Then we go to another transition that brings up maybe another topic that backs up the lead. Off-campus housing, on the other hand, has the option of an AC unit. So now we're going to off-campus housing, but doesn't guarantee comfort. This really should have like students say at the end of the just so you know. If you're going into like transitions, it should say like you make sure you try to attribute, to where it's coming from. Okay. All right. Um Chili Roach. So basically, so we have an on-campus problem with heating, and then we have an off-campus problem with heating. So basically, those are two different points that back up why the housing situation sucks. So it sucks on campus and it sucks off campus. And now we have an example of somebody who's dealing with the off-campus problems with that. And it's an anecdote. It tells us a little story within a story. A rising junior lives off campus on Easton Avenue. That's where I lived for a month. Said the dryer didn't work for the first month of the semester. And actually, this actually doesn't deal necessarily just with like the first one dealt with heat and on campus. This one actually deals with not just the air conditioner, but deals with all equipment. So it's actually not only is it just it's like a different it's a topic that's connected to the lead, but it's a different point from this. This deals with the heat on campus. This deals with the equipment off campus. Okay. So Sheila Roach said the dryer didn't work for the first months of the semester, something we all can relate to because we want our clothes to not stink. It took another 3 weeks for the maintenance to finally show up and replace the outdated dryer. Oh God, that's something I can relate to. I mean, I tell you, once you like leave college and you deal with apartments living and that sort of thing, whoa, and you don't have that sort of control that you wished you had. She said to rely on friends washer who lived a couple blocks away. Yeah, I've had to deal with that kind of situation with a laundromat. See how I'm kind of relating to it? That's what you want to do. This anecdote is speaking to me. Okay. I understand living in a house has its downsides, but with the amount I pay, I at least expect working appliances. Again, good, colorful, emotional, direct quote. But this part is paraphrased, okay? Because this is more informational. It's telling you a story within a story. And then what you do is you come out with the colorful that kind of helps humanize the story, okay? Even students who are comfortable with their living situation acknowledge that the housing at Rutgers University is not ideal, especially with now we're getting into the cost, which some people have already like hinted at and alert, but now this one's going to deal with it head on. Lucy Santos, a rising junior at Easton Avenue Apartments, said the rent may be expensive, but her living accommodations are worth the price. There is a gym, centralized air, blah blah blah, in her own kitchen. On top of all this, her landlord. However, she understands it's not the typical housing experience. That's a good mix there. Kind of almost like showing like everything. Like, because there are people who are actually satisfied with things are. Many of her friends have described mold issues as well as communal bathrooms being unclean the majority of the time. Okay. For international students, housing in Rutgers presents a greater issue to even arriving into Brunswick. She said she was arrived from India. Now I got another anecdote right here. She had no opportunity to tour an apartment, so she relied on photos instead. It turned out that the apartment had limited ventilation and ended up mixing on the mold issue. Oh, that's awful. I just had to deal with flooding in my basement, and I could just really kind of relate and connect with that. And this is actually really the best way to end a story is with a quote. That is really the best way to end a story. You don't need to sum up. Your lead is your conclusion. Okay, so no need for that. Okay, um, you just really need to kind of like I've said it to you guys a bunch of times. Like a story just kind of dwindles out. Okay, it doesn't really do any kind of um there's no like flourishing finish. There's no need to sum up because again, like most people don't read the whole story anyway, so there's no need to actually you know, you know, there's no need to actually like make people, hide things from people or something like that until the very bottom of the story. What you need to do is need to basically, um, come out with sum up with that's what I call a summary lead. You need to sum up what the story's about like right away, and then you get into essentially like you break it down into smaller parts and that sort of thing. And like I said, and they call it a walk off quotes. Basically, you walk off with a quote, almost like saying bye, almost saying like, "Here's my last thought on this," sort of thing, and then you wave goodbye and you just end the story and it dwindles out like that last small point on the inverted pyramid does. Okay. Okay, so that's it, everybody, and I appreciate it. I didn't go the typical length as I usually did this time. No hour-long videos. I'll probably have a longer video on Monday, so please pay attention to that. Don't forget what's due, and thanks very much.